Good morning. Who was out partying at Epcot last night? That's right. Have you guys been to the parks at all? The number of alcohol-related T-shirts I saw at Epcot, like play on words, like one was "When you wish upon a bar," which my kids were just like, "What does that even mean?" I sip around the world. There were some good ones. Anyway, thanks for being here this morning. So today we're going to talk about words. We're going to talk about you and words, all of you. So I actually started out as a website copywriter, these many years ago, and inevitably every single time I came to the table with a website project, this is sort of the scene that would play itself out. That was my little transition. Come back with me. Did you want to say it again just in case you missed it? There it is. Although I should have used the flame transition. So here is exactly how this scene would evolve that's me. Here's how this scene would evolve every single time. I would walk in the 11th hour of this project, right? Because what happens? We do the research, we do the design, we do the development, and then the developers are sitting on their hands and they're like, "We're ready for the words." And they say, "Bring in the copywriter." And that was me. So I would say, "Hey, how's it going? We got like 4 weeks left to launch. What did I miss?" And this guy would be like, "You were missing 9 months of work. I'm going to check and see what's in my bag now." And this person would say, don't worry. Todd, this guy has time to catch you up. And Todd, who is knee deep in over his head in trying to get this thing to launch, is just like, "I don't know, do I really have time?" So then as sort of my skill set evolved and I started to think, there's got to be more to this thing than just plugging words in to replace the lorem ipsum. I feel like maybe if I could get into the conversation a little bit earlier, I could ask some of the questions that tend to kind of burn us in that 11th hour. And so as that happened, my fees increased because I needed more time. And so I'd come in and I'd say, "Okay, look, here's how much it's actually going to cost you. It's not going to be $4. It's going to be a reasonable amount for me to contribute the way that a writer or a content strategist should contribute." And then, of course, he'd be like, "Well, we only have $4. And then what would happen is, "Well, okay, Todd's going to have to write the copy." And Todd would be like, "I'm sorry, excuse me?" So we moved on. And pretty soon the tools of my trade began to evolve. And I understood. Thank you so much. Oh, I got double, man. Sprite and Sprite Zero. What's up? Full service and event part, folks. So the tools of my trade began to evolve. Content strategy became more and more of the thing. We developed at Brain Traffic and elsewhere things like, page tables, content inventories, use cases as SEO guidelines, voice and tone guidelines. And they were still calling me in the 11th hour. And I'd come in and I'd be like, "Okay, well, I hope you all have this stuff because we need this before we can really start writing." And this guy would be like, "Oh, that's a lot. I got to check my bag." And this person would say, "Okay, don't worry. Todd's got it." And Todd would be all, "Come on, why is it me?" Every time. So this is about when content strategy started to take shape in the field. When we really began to recognize and realize that words were more than just lorem ipsum. That we were talking about substantive information, words that were shaping people's actions and perceptions that needed consideration as early as humanly possible within the project process. So today, content strategy is a field that sort of encompasses a lot of different areas of content and how content comes to life within a project or on an ongoing basis within an organization. And when we talk about content strategy, this is how we discuss it at Brain Traffic. Content strategy guides the creation, delivery, and governance of useful and usable content. So this is sort of we had a quad that was, anybody familiar with the circle quad that looked like Simon, that game? Well, we evolved it and we made it a square so you could tell that it was different. See? But this is how we really talk about it now and how we feel that it better reflects the field and how that has evolved. So we've got content design meets systems design, and content strategy is sort of that connective fiber that pulls all those things together. So let's break this down just a little bit. Sarah Richards in the UK was the person that led and developed the process to reimagine, redevelop, and relaunch gov.uk, where if you are familiar with that site at all, this is like the holy grail of every content strategist. It is fully user-focused, it is consistent in word and voice and tone, it's clear, it's accessible. So we have really kind of embraced her definition of content design when we talk about plugging in content designer or content strategist into a process. So content design uses data and evidence to give the audience what they need at the time they need it and in a way that they expect. And there are two sides to that content design coin. The first is editorial. We've talked throughout the conference a little bit about voice and tone, editorial, whether it is actually an editor, a marketer, a brand person, or if we have the opportunity to shape our product personality, understanding what our voice and tone is. Understanding what action we are trying to facilitate and the words that we are going to select and use in order to help support that action. What topics do we need to cover? If we have a website where we're working to convey information, support decision-making, and so on, there's going to be longer content, more substantive content that we need to craft and deliver. What is that, and how will it support our users' tasks? What is our point of view within our organization or our team? And of course, what brand and legal standards do we need to comply with when we are creating our content? The other side of the content design coin is experience and how the content works within the experience design. So understanding this, again, I want to be clear, this is not the content strategist's job. This is simply the things that we need to consider when we are considering our content. What are our users' needs and preferences? What do our customer journeys look like? What does our entire content ecosystem look like? What are the products, the websites, the social media channels that people will be moving between as they get to know our organization and our product and make decisions to use it and continue using it? What formats will our content take across that journey? And how will design patterns inevitably shape our content across screens? So that's content design. Let's move on to systems design. When we're talking about creating and repurposing and helping people find content, we are talking about actually designing systems. And this is kind of the dictionary definition of systems design. It's the process of defining the architecture, modules, and data for a system to satisfy specified requirements. And this works within our web systems and ecosystems. So we talk about structure. This is traditional information architecture. How are we going to organize content for browse and find? Understanding what tags are most intuitive for users, not just our external users, but also our internal users as we are searching and finding content to reuse across our organization. How are we going to categorize our content for efficient management, both with our editorial or our different teams who are touching the content, as well as by machines? How are we going to structure that content for future reuse across channels? And then what are the content requirements that we need to be considering for things like personalization or dynamic delivery or AI? And finally, we consider the process. How is content going to move throughout its life cycle? So not only who is responsible for identifying necessary content requirements, but once it launches and after launch, who's going to take care of that content over time all the way through to archival or deletion? What tools are we going to use to create, deliver, and maintain our content? How and when are we going to care for that existing content, and who is going to care for it? And then ultimately, who gets to say no? And what we find is that within website projects in particular, no one gets to say no, which is how our websites become bloated and difficult to use, and difficult for people to find information, and difficult for people to read the information and use it once they find it, because nobody said no. Okay, so that's kind of the world of content strategy. There are content strategists who specialize in kind of one area of this quad. There are some that kind of move between all of them. But what is really important is that people who are working with words need to have some sort of a working understanding of at least what these different things are, and what the requirements are for people whose job this is, or the products, how products depend on these different areas to actually come to life, so that we can begin to ask better, smarter questions about what are the words that we're going to be choosing as we move forward in the design and development process. So I want to focus on the words today. And oftentimes the words fall to a copywriter, right? Or an editorial specialist. So what happens when we don't have a content strategist to connect the dots here? And what happens when we don't have a copywriter who is assigned to get this work done? You all know what happens. Dan talked about it a little bit in his design. We get a beautiful wireframe, we do the sketches, we do the collaborative thinking, we do all this good stuff, and then it comes time to write the words and we get this. Ooh, if anybody here is from Ringer, I have some feedback. But don't worry, I am here because, believe it or not, you all can do it. Let's watch that again. Really, keynote transitions, there's nothing better. In fact, here's the deal. That's you, and this is this talk. Okay, actually, it's cake. It's cake, all right? It's delicious. You can do it. I think a lot of times people are like, I don't write. I don't do the words. I don't want to do the words. It's somebody else's job. How often do we see that in our agencies or in our partnerships? The client will take care of the content. This doesn't always happen. Can anyone relate? I see tears. Here's what we're going to cover today. I want to talk about, in our content, inclusivity, understanding who it is that actually needs our content. I want to discuss intent in understanding and helping facilitate whatever it is that our users are trying to do. I want to discuss understanding meaning. What is it that you're trying to say? Context, understanding where the user is in the journey, and constraints, understanding as you work to create and craft these words what it is that you can't change. So let's start with inclusivity. I don't know how Dagwood Bumstead came to star in this presentation. Does anybody even know who this is? This is a cartoon character from when I was a kid, and Dagwood and Blondie were like the superstar couple of the comic section. And he likes sandwiches, so anyway, you're gonna see Dagwood. He's my new BFF. He's gonna be yours too, believe it or not. So here's this guy, Dagwood Bumstead. And if we're thinking about Dagwood's user persona, he's married, he's got kids, he's got a dog. He's a construction manager. And we know that he likes sandwiches, long baths, and naps on the sofa. These are Dagwood's defining characteristics. This is our user persona for Dagwood. What we don't know is that Dagwood is also colorblind and that he is starting to struggle with hearing loss. Here's the deal with our standard user personas. There's a pretty one, Clark, right? Age, defining personality characteristics, he's friendly, he's clever, he's a go-getter. We've got motivations, goals, frustrations, personality, technology, all mapped out on this nice little grid. Brand affiliation, bio. What happens when we are working with these user personas is that inevitably, because of our own experience, our own personal history, the speed with which our project is moving, the people we are working with, it inevitably and unknowingly, we begin to make inappropriate assumptions about who our users are, what they care about, and what they deserve. And so as we begin to craft our words within our product, within our website, what I encourage you to begin to think about is approaching your work with the idea of intentional inclusion. That we are holding in our minds from day one the idea that we want everybody to be able to use this stuff, right? Inclusive behaviors are those practices and behaviors that leverage and honor the uniqueness of people's different talents, beliefs, identities, and ways of living. Here's how non-inclusive writing makes people feel. We don't want our readers and our users to feel like this, ever. Less important, defective, unvalued, abnormal, biased against. And yet, unknowingly, unconsciously, when we're making those inappropriate assumptions about our users, we can introduce this and cause these reactions. And nobody wants that. So as you're approaching design and as you're approaching writing, there are 4 areas to sort of consider. And again, this is a practice, right? This is an intentional choice to behave in a way that becomes a practice so that approaching your words these things become a habit, that you don't even think twice about them. We want to pay attention to gender, race, sexual orientation and identity, and accessibility. So here are some pretty easy tips. Use non-specific pronouns. Used to be that to do that, we would just sort of, well, first it was all he, it was all he, it was all Mr., it was all gentleman and man. Then we started sort of flipping back and forth between he and she. Now it's acceptable to use they as a gender-neutral pronoun for either he or she as a singular. That was a happy day when they introduced that. Try to address the user directly. We always appreciate to be spoken to as you or your. And that automatically is going to wipe clean a lot of different assumptions and mistakes that we might make as we're writing. Try to avoid gendered nouns wherever you can. This is kind of a tough one, and I think that there's a lot of tiptoeing around this, is understanding which labels are acceptable for race and ethnicity, and the best way to do this is to get guidance from the members of groups that you are describing. That can be an awkward conversation, but ultimately just asking the question or getting guidance or frankly doing the research is the best way to be able to make a decision that's going to be respectful and help your users to feel safe and seen. And then acknowledging simply a range of sexual identities and orientation simply by avoiding exclusive language and labels. The best way that you can do this is just spot check each other. Okay, and again, this doesn't need to be like a super heavy, like PC conversation where we're tiptoeing around each other. This is just something that we should be bringing to the table as a habit. So for accessibility, here are some real basic guidelines. Provide informative, unique page titles. Use headings to convey meaning and structure. Make link text meaningful. No more click here. If a reader comes across click here, your blind user is going to be like, click here for what, you jerk, okay? Write meaningful alt text for images. Create transcripts and captions for multimedia where you can. Provide clear instructions and keep the content clear and concise. So here's an example from guidelines for Microsoft's Cortana voice assistant, which these guidelines are actually available online, and there's a lot of really useful stuff that you can kind of lift and apply within your own work. So if we're providing directions, we do want to say, just take a right at the corner of 5th and Broadway. We don't want to assume that someone can walk there. And we sure don't want to pander by telling people to, hey, walk, wheel, or drive, right? No. That's embarrassing. Don't do that. Just say, take a right. Or if they say, I want to order a child's basketball, just say, yes, we can help you with that action. Don't try to, make things gender specific within there. And don't ask, okay, girls' basketballs or boys' basketballs, all right? Because we don't want to make inappropriate assumptions about who they're buying the basketball for. So, I love this quote. Inclusivity is recognizing and supporting the intrinsic value of all human beings by creating and sustaining conditions that foster equity, empowerment, awareness, and competence at the personal, group, and organizational levels. This sounds lofty, but it's very much within reach. So I encourage you to start paying attention to your own habits and assumptions and to start to embrace some of these ideas as you are working with words. Okay, intent. What are they trying to do? Here, we assume that Dagwood is trying to shove this giant sandwich into his mouth. He's trying to eat, right? But here's the deal. He's not just trying to eat. There are a lot of different reasons that we eat. We want to satisfy hunger. We want to fuel up because we're ready to go. Celebrate an occasion. We want to eat our feelings. That's not me. That's me. Win a prize for eating the biggest sandwich. Okay? So there are reasons that he is eating that go beyond just the activity of eating. All right? So in this sense, we want to begin to, or within this context, we want to begin to understand what our users' top tasks are when they are coming to our website or beginning to work with our product. So what are top tasks? These are the small set of tasks that matter most to your customers. Jerry McGovern, who's a frequent speaker here at an event apart, is sort of the pioneer of understanding top tasks and how this plays into not just the choices that we're making in terms of functionality for our products and sites, but also specifically how we're prioritizing content as we are writing and organizing it. He actually has a new book coming out, and I think it's out. I'll tweet the link to it after the presentation. But I really encourage you to look up his work. He's a brilliant, endlessly optimistic guy, and he's just a joy to work with and to read his stuff. All right, so for starters, when we're looking at top tasks, let's look at the United States Postal Service website. We have up here in the corner, we have quick tools. All right, quick tools, that's what I want because websites are overwhelming and I hate them, right? So we go and we look at quick tools and here's what we come up with. We have track a package, inform delivery, find USPS locations, and so on. All right, so what are these? These are the top tasks, right? These are the reasons that people have come to this website through research or in testing and interviews and whatever else. Analytics, the people behind this website have determined that these are the main reasons that people are coming to our site. Now, what do you notice these labels have in common? They use actions. They use verbs. They say, you are here for a quick task and I'm going to help you complete that task. But wait, there are inconsistencies. Free boxes. Where's the verb? We could have said get free boxes. Nobody's going to notice this except me because I'm a writer and this stuff bugs me. But still, it would have been so easy to just say get free boxes to create consistency, right? As it is, maybe this means I'm going to read about free boxes. And then we have click and ship and informed delivery. These are branded services, and I don't know what they are. All right, so if we are talking about helping people complete a task, what we can say here is ship online or get postage, right? And informed delivery, does anybody know what that is? It's crazy. They scan your mail, and you can go, if you were expecting a piece of mail, you can go online and see if it was actually delivered or if it's going to be delivered today. I had no idea until I went to read about that, all right? So, this is a great example of top task with a few tweaks that I would encourage them to take a look at. This is my local energy and electric and gas company, Xcel Energy. This is their big brand statement that you see as soon as you hit their website, which is not what I care about. What I care about is starting, stopping, or transferring my service. So they very kindly have included that in their main IA menu, or in their global nav. So let's take a look at how they talk about this. Transfer your service, start your service, or stop your service. Great. Why do I need those red buttons? Because somebody designed them. And what I have there now is redundant language that gets in my way from getting it done. Change your service address, add a new address, stop billing. I didn't need that. It looks pretty, but at least provide me with some consistency there. Okay? Oh, look, I circled it for while I was talking. How am I doing? Okay, so basically, to summarize this stuff, don't use brands or jargon when you are trying to help guide people or facilitate top tasks. Use the words that they're going to understand to help them get stuff done. Avoid product names or groups when possible. Eliminate overlap when you are addressing those top tasks. Try to avoid lofty concepts and goals because nobody comes to the table thinking about that when they're trying to get stuff done. Be consistent in your language, and again, be concise. Okay? Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome. Were you at Epcot? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Did you go to Epcot last night? You did what? Good traffic. Oh, there was too much traffic? Oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry. They have buses. Yeah, all right. Thanks for coming. Okay, next up, when we are creating, when we're writing copy to help people get their stuff done, we want to start with the verb. It's pretty easy. All right, here are these odd future socks that my 14-year-old is obsessed with. He wanted me to pay $28 for socks. I didn't do that, so he mowed a lawn and he did it, whatever. Okay, so Amazon has tested the crap out of everything on their site. It's crazy how much testing they do. And here's what they have ended up with. Add, buy, turn on, deliver, add, and add. All the verbs. Get stuff done. Why? Because they want you to buy it, or they want you to save it to buy it later. The end. They're getting out of your way, okay? Moo Cards, I love Moo Cards so much, has included some prompt text within their selection menu, right? Choose a design. Weirdly, they decided not to do that in the pull-down menu below. Why? That would have been easy. Choose a shape, because that's what corners mean, right? And then start making. What could have clarified that is start making your product, or start making your cards, or start making whatever it is that you're doing. That would have helped clarify, because start making is nothing I've ever said. I want to start making. Okay, how would you like to design your business cards? Use our templates, design here online, upload a full design. Again, verbs. Look at how different this looks if I use nouns. Okay, this doesn't answer my question. This gives me topics to read about. We like verbs, okay? Next, as you are working through your design, you always want to make smart choices, and the same thing comes when you are choosing words that you are selecting, again, to help people do those tasks. All right, so here are 3 examples of banks, online bank sign-on modules. Okay, let's look at each of these separately. View your accounts. They offer a pull-down to give you different ways to view your accounts: username, password, save username, sign-on. And then they give you 3 little options down there: enroll now, fraud information center, privacy, cookies, and security. Right? Those last 2 are probably legal requirements. I've never in my life clicked on fraud information center looking for that tiny label if I think somebody has ripped off my card. All right? But they've plugged it in there. How about this one? Super straightforward. They fully get out of my way and help me do what I came there to do, which is to figure out where I want to log in, get logged in. They've offered me a link if I forgot my ID, okay? And if I'm a new user, they give me that link. Really clean. They're getting out of my way. Now look at this one. All the actions in like a, tiny little box. Nobody wants that. You just get out of my way. If I'm there to look at my accounts, it's going to be quick and easy, okay? So when you are choosing what actions to include in your design, in your build, choose wisely. Focus on that top task. And tied to that is the idea that when you get writing, when your writer gets writing, you want to control yourself. This is out of control if we are looking at this. We're so glad you're here. In all caps. I don't care. Because what I want to do is I want to add a conversation to my podcasting, right? Or I want to maybe upgrade to premium. This is your login page. These are the only 2 actions that you can complete. And the rest of it is just extraneous information. This is getting in my way. Conference calling is here, but you have to learn more about it before you can get started. Here you can get started, optimize your recording, but you can only look at helpful hints. All right, so they have all these great verbs that are masking the fact that you can't actually get a whole lot done from this landing page. Okay, so then we move on to meaning. What is it that you're trying to say in the first place? Good question. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to hone in on substance. Substance is a word that I love. I say it a lot. Where is the substance in this content? How can we make this more substantive? If we're going to use 200 words to write a paragraph, let's make sure it's packed with substance. All right, so substance. What's the substance of this sandwich? Dagwood, you crazy fella. This is all the stuff that Dagwood has put into his sandwich, including some weird blue stuff that I couldn't figure out what it was. All right, so when we look at wireframes, we have an idea of what goes where. We maybe have some labels, but what we don't have is the actual substance of the content. And the best way to think about this is if you've ever been in a card sort or have used Post-it notes where you're brainstorming sections for a site or features or whatever, and you work to organize them. What happens is that gets plugged into a sitemap, and that sitemap gets handed off to the writers, and the writer looks at that About Us page label and is like, well, what about us? What's my priority? Where do I start? With a history, where we're founded, who leads us, what we do? I don't know, but I've got this label, right? So we want to go beyond just what it's supposed to be and really look at what it's supposed to contain, what it's supposed to say, what it's supposed to do. And we do this with patterns and requirements, right? We dig into that a little bit more. Why don't we do it with our content? So here's a tool that we developed and that we use at Brain Traffic. It's just a version of it. There are a million different tools like this that have been around for many, many years, but we call it a page table. And we want to consider using this for key areas of our site. This is the first time I was talking about this I think it was on a podcast with Lou Rosenfeld. He lost his mind because he was like, you're telling me I'm supposed to create one of these for every single page on a website? What if my website is 100,000 pages? We do not want 100,000 page tables. That is a terrible idea. But what we do want is we want to be able to talk to our writers from a designer perspective or from a content strategy perspective about what this page, what this section is supposed to do, what it's supposed to mean, what it's supposed to convey, and the priorities of that information that we're looking for. So here are some things that you can include in your page table. This is not a prescriptive thing. It's going to vary, but it is a really useful tool, especially if you are counting on stakeholders or other members within your organization to deliver that content. This is really, really helpful to them. So we understand the descriptor tag, what template it is that they're supposed to be referring to, any primary use cases, source content that we can point them to so they're not just randomly digging around looking for stuff. And then we have how it is that we are prioritizing that content. What do we want it to say? Okay? So here we've got like a new user call to action, a returning user who hasn't created an account call to action, and so on. These are our priorities on the page. We don't want what happened to that ringer page where we're like, welcome to this page. We want that out of the way. We want to help the user get done what they came to do. Okay? So again, these labels can flex, but this is a great tool to bridge what we intend to the content that we actually need. It's also very helpful for you to begin to clarify within your own minds and to sort of simplify what it is that you need to write if you're the one responsible for the words. Because this is a brain dump. You don't need to worry about wordsmithing this. This is just a brain dump of where your priorities are and what you're trying to accomplish within your design, within your features. Okay? This is a really important thing to consider, my next point, as you are approaching developing content, which is that really, for all the stuff you want to say, for the most part, nobody cares. And what they especially don't care about is all the navel-gazing that your PR department and your boss and your CEO want you to do with the content on your site. So here's an example. Provergent, which is there anybody here who works for Provergent? Anyone? Okay, that is the worst company name I've ever heard in my life. Okay, so they practice continuous learning. Great. What is the very first thing that they want to talk about? Who we are, right? They want to talk about our purpose, our mission. They give us a huge paragraph of very tiny grayscale text, which we'll talk about later. This is what it has to say. Look at this for a minute. If you are visiting this company looking for product support or interested in what it is that they offer or what they can help you do, why are they getting in my way with this? Look at all the times they talk about themselves. Me, 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 me. Nobody cares. What's in it for me as a user? Similarly, here is talent recruitment and staffing agency. What's the first thing they talk about? Us, right? Our vision, our mission, our values, about us. Nobody cares. Keep your mission statement off your homepage because nobody cares. Now check out Aetna. You don't join us, we join you. You. Now keep it up. Your health goals, wherever you want your health to take you, whatever your life stage, achieve your health ambitions. Now I see myself in this content, all right? And it's repetitive in this instance. Like, it's not super great copy, but I immediately see myself and I want to engage. I want to learn more. I want to know what Aetna can do for me. Okay? All right. This is another huge challenge that we have, no matter who we are and how much we write in our day-to-day work, which is, I think, a lot of time when we think about writing, we think about, okay, if we do want this to be substantive, it has to be a lot of words, right? We've got to really, really sort of make sure that people feel like their question is being answered. We've got to make sure no stone is left unturned. We want to be conversational. We want to, deliver to them a real knockout of whatever it is that they're looking for. Here's the thing. As you scan through all this copy, the question is, can I import my file into Zencastr so that it can be synced for post-production? That's what all that copy is saying. We can't do it yet. No, we can't. Use an external audio editor. Look at that again. It's crazy pants, but this is what we do. And I think it's because we're afraid. We are afraid that if we write too little, that people will think that we're slacking or that we're not addressing all of the points or that we don't know what we're doing. And in reality, writing shorter stuff is harder, but it is worth the time. So this can be your brain dump, and then get in there and edit it down to the substance of what it is that people want you to help them do, even if you're delivering bad news, which is nope. So from a brand perspective, this is like super crazy mountain biking fan fanatic site, right? And they sell expensive stuff, products, where to buy, information hole, blah, blah, blah. And they've got this information hole, which is a really cool way of talking about like these super in-depth reviews about why would I want to buy this bike? What do our specialists think about this bike? Okay? You have to be a very specific kind of user and a very specific kind of brand loyalist to take your time with this content. It really is more of like a long-form magazine-based site to help you make decisions about what bike it is that you want to purchase. Now let's look at Trek. Trek is giving you the specs. They're simple, they're getting to the point, and they also want to offer you a review and provide their own personal expertise, but here's how they deliver it. A simple bulleted list, why we love it. Here's our expert viewpoint. Here are the things here are the main points, the main features, the main attributes of this equipment that make it right for you or not right for you. It's quick, it's easy, it's to the point, it's appropriate for this environment because Trek is an e-commerce site, not a magazine. Okay? You want to buy movie tickets online? Let's go to Fandango. I buy, and this is the confirmation. Mobile ticket requested. Okay? I purchased it, I want you to send it to my phone. You requested it, we successfully sent it. If you don't receive it, check with your carrier or try again. Okay? Simple, straightforward, to the point. check status, choose another ticket option, and a little bit of legalese down here. Let's check out movietickets.com. I go in, I look, I buy, I ask for the ticket to come to my phone, and this is what I get. Okay? Here's how I need to get my tickets. I can pick up my tickets, I can't get them sent to my phone, but they're making me read this giant old paragraph to figure it out. Okay? From a formatting perspective, look at all of this information dumped and crammed into here. I went in and did some editing and introduced a really simple tool, which is the bulleted list. And all this does is it helps me scan all this information that you want to present. That says the exact same thing. Okay? It says the exact same thing. It just strips out all of the blah, 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 blah that nobody cares about. You can do this. You don't have to be a professional writer to be able to simplify text, to make it scannable. A really easy thing to do when you're trying to write text is just to read this out loud. Your confirmation number. When picking up your tickets at the box office or automated ticket kiosk where available, please bring the credit card that was originally used to purchase the tickets. Dude, that's too many words. Show the credit card you used to purchase them. That's all you need to say. You can do this. You can also avoid cliches. All right? No puns. No open the kimono. None of that. Has anybody seen unsuckit.com? It's my friend Erica Hall put this together. Spend some time on it. It is unbelievably hilarious and painfully true. So, what terrible business jargon do you need unsucked? They offer you a prompt at the end of the day, and there are a million of them. For example, crushing it. This means doing well or succeeding. Don't say crushing it. I hate that. Amazon.com is so crushing it. Now, just say doing well or succeeding. At the end of the day, after all, or in conclusion. Okay? I especially love that they encourage you to dig deeper into their site by saying the douchebag who said this probably also said non-trivial, or personal reasons. It's a really fun site. And you can submit your own crappy business jargon. Don't state the obvious. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. It's not 1999 anymore. We don't need to welcome people to our website. Don't do that. Right? Just get to the point. Don't state the obvious. Or here, on a product. This is the parking app that I use in Minneapolis when I'm running around downtown. They say, if you'd like to see the quick tutorial again or you need further assistance, please look at the buttons below. Really? Like, I don't need that because I'm already looking at the buttons below. Right? But somebody gave them the room for all that copy in lorem ipsum, so they're dang well going to fill it in. Buttons. I love this. This one is still available. Click the button below to order online. Click me to order online. Cute, but annoying. And where is the button? It's not a button, it's a woman's head. Okay? So, whatever you're trying to say it concisely, say it quickly, use human language, get to the point. Okay? All right, let's talk about context. Where is the user in their journey? Where are they in their process of learning about us, finding out about us, becoming aware of us, doing business with us, using our product, having challenges with our product, continuing to use it, canceling it, whatever? Where are they? Dagwood, my friend. Did you know that Dagwood's wife, this is in like the 30s or 40s when he was first introduced, his wife was named Blondie, and part of the backstory is that Blondie was a dancer, and so Dagwood's family disowned him because he married a dancer. Comics are dark, man. People were depressed back then. Okay, so where is Dagwood in his journey of eating this giant sandwich? Maybe it's time to eat. Maybe he's at a party. Maybe he's in front of the TV. He got some free food, so he's going to eat it. He's eating his feelings. Okay? The first thing you want to do as you are considering this information is you want to be careful to watch your tone. So Val, when she spoke yesterday, talked a little bit about voice and tone. When we're talking about voice, that is actually something that falls kind of on this is a simple tool called the brand personality spectrum. Like, who are we? So we all have a voice, right? Like, we're all individuals. I am Kristina, my voice is my voice does not change, okay? What changes is my tone. The tone that I use to speak to you right now versus the tone I use for my 11-year-old when she's asking me for cotton candy for the 12th time in the same day are two very different tones. And they depend on the context of the situation in which I find myself. So I am sad to say that the voice and tone example guide that I have pointed to for years with MailChimp has been replaced by much more standardized voice and tone guidelines, which are still useful and usable, but they're not this tool that content strategists everywhere have been pointing to for the last several years. Is anyone familiar with this? The previous voice and tone? It's so pretty, isn't it? What's great about it is that they help separate out, here's what voice is, here's what tone is, and then they actually, for you, the writer or the designer or wherever you are in the process, help you understand here's where the user is in their journey and here's how your tone can and should shift. So here's an example. We're crafting a success message. The user feels this way. I finished the campaign, now I can enjoy the weekend. Here's sample copy. Fine piece of work, you deserve a raise. We're addressing the user's feelings over here, right? And we're providing them with some sample copy. Down here, we're giving some very, very concrete tips about what to consider when you're putting this sample copy together. It's really great. You can work with a writer or someone in brand, or your content strategist, to put these together in a way that is going to help empower designers to craft some of this copy, to help them feel more confident in tackling it by helping them understand that there is some kind of personality behind it. And maybe that personality is very formal and corporate, and that's fine. But we need to help people understand what it is, who we are, what our voice attributes are, so that we can begin to create consistency across all touch points. Here's another example. The user, I need to make sure MailChimp isn't going to steal my content before I send a campaign. How is the user feeling right now? Apprehensive, confused, vigilant about protecting their content. So here, we don't want to be super jokey with them. We want to be calm, we want to be firm, we want to be reassuring. You're in charge. You have ownership. We're not going to take this. And the tips, write as calmly and clearly as possible. This is not a time to be super cute, Freddie, the mascot. Failure message. This is another one. Oh, we've all seen really bad failure messages. What went wrong? I need to get this out. They're confused. They're stressed. They're angry. We just want to calm them down. We just want to offer them a solution. We just want to let them know that we are on it, we're straightforward, we're to the point, we're not sassy, okay? Tied into that is that we want to respect their process. We want to be sure that we understand that wherever they are in their user journey, that we are respecting that frame of mind. So this is like my favorite / least favorite example. I live in Minneapolis, and so my carrier is Delta. They just redesigned their site. I hate it, but there it is. So one thing that happens, and this is pretty common, one thing that when you have a logged in state is that after a certain amount of time, they're going to log you out, right? Which is fine. I get that. But if I've been working on all these plans and booking, and I'm about ready to book, and then I step away for a second and I come back, and all my work has been lost because I've been logged out, the thing I do not want them to tell me is to get back in there. Buddy, it's all right. We'll help you. Come on, get back in there and start over everything that you were working on. Then they blame me. Looks like you've been idle for too long. Get back to what you were doing or start fresh from the home page because clearly you don't know how to click on our logo. This message infuriates me. It used to be worse. It used to say, but don't worry, we'll help you get back to the beginning with a link to the home page. Because remember, there's no place like home. Wildly inappropriate tone. and in fact does not reflect Delta's voice at all. Angry, so it gets a red underline. And then here, if you're still having problems, right? Yo, I wasn't having any problems. I just stepped away. You're the one that logged me out. Now I have a problem. Or another one. If you're booking, for example, and there's some kind of a technical error, here's the message you get. Let's try that again, you stupid little girl. It's infuriating. Why doesn't it say, oops, we've encountered an error, or whatever? Take responsibility for that. Don't blame it on me. Here's another one. If it's a lost page or a broken link, you may have typed that URL incorrectly. I don't type URLs, I click on links. This is your fault. You broke it, not me. I love this one, error. Happy guys on a bicycle. That's not what I want. I want you to help me. We can't find the page you're looking for, that's fine, right? I'm gonna click that back button, but this is not an appropriate design or graphic to serve up to me at this point in my journey. It doesn't respect my process. Some people have fun with their error page. You get to see the dogs of Amazon. Of course, this is one of those holes that you go down. Oh, they couldn't find that page, but I can see the dogs of Amazon. You go and you dig in there. I love this one from movietickets.com. It's a real good one. Allianz, a local insurance company, literally made a video, 404 error page, Allianz employees saying sorry. So you can just, enter in any fake URL and you can watch that whole video. It's like 3 minutes long, but it's kind of worth it. Okay? All right, next, we want to be consistent. As we are crafting our words throughout this journey, I'm sorry I've said that a million times, but this is something we always need to consider as designers, is even if we're working on a specific feature or module or user state or whatever, they don't care about your process or where you are or what you're crafting. They care about the consistency of the experience. And that is oftentimes interrupted by sudden shift in voice and tone. I always pick on Ben & Jerry's. I always pick on them because they have I think they probably have 3 writers and they all sit in very different areas of the building and they've never met each other, and I just want to get them all together and take them bowling. So, Ben & Jerry's, their design, their visual brand, their voice and tone is very fun and uplifting, and ice cream and save the world, and we've got flavor gurus and all this stuff. And then if you're like, I need to get in touch with Ben & Jerry's because I have a question about helping out with some of their social efforts, or I have an allergy and I need to talk to them about this, or I got a bad thing of ice cream and I want to return it and I don't know how to do that. You go to their Contact Us page, and I have a food allergy, can I eat your ice cream? Here's what I get, right? It's this long legalese. We have a very proactive approach to addressing the concerns of persons with food sensitivities. We work closely with all our ingredient suppliers to verify all ingredient components, including those in natural flavors, colors, and spices. That goes on for the rest of the paragraph. It's crazy pants. All I need to know is this, really. This one sentence. There's some supporting information there, but here's simply how I took a stab at rewriting it. I got in there, I looked at the substance, I broke it up into little pieces, and I decided I was going to use a numbered list this time. But the main piece that I want to know is that if you're allergic to something and you don't see it on the packaging, then it's safe for you to eat. And here's why. Because we work our butts off to make sure that all that information is super available and clear to you. You can trust us. Here are our backing proof points. Okay? Bless you. This is a nonprofit, so I actually do kind of want to know about them, so I'll forgive them for having an About Us section here. But here's the thing, filling pantries, filling lives. You go throughout their site, and it's very conversational, it's very passionate. They really believe in their mission. They are active, they're in the communities, they're personable. They want you to give them money, you want to get involved. And then They start sending you all these emails, and you decide you don't want to get the emails anymore, so they send you this back. Dear constituent, at your request, you have been unsubscribed from our mailing list. We're sorry if we inconvenienced you. If your needs change in the future, we hope you will consider subscribing. This is this weird kind of like final touch point for me in this relationship that makes me go, what is is this who they really are all along, these weird kind of corporate people? It just leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. But really the example is meant to point out the inconsistency in their voice and tone. Here's another one. Lovesack. I buy one couch, they send me like 80 gajillion emails. I want out. I want to update. I want to unsubscribe. So I do it, and their response to me is, all right, see you later. So I swear to you, this was placeholder copy, and it got published. At the very least, I was like, I can use this in my use your words talk. All right, and then finally, we're going to talk about constraints. What can't you change? If you're going to make a big sandwich, here are some things that you cannot change. You can only use what's in the fridge. You can only use your source content, your SME knowledge, your being able to craft words that are going to support your core features. All right? That's all you got. You can't change that. You can't change your sandwich making skills. So if you've got certain skill sets on your team or within your organization, we get this all the time. We get phone calls. We have all this content we need to craft, but we don't have any writers on our team. Then you better either A, pay to get some training and some ongoing coaching, or B, hire a writer. I can't wave a wand, right? Or you can send your people to an event apart to learn how to write. Woohoo! Dietary restrictions, can't change those. Time frame, how long do you have to eat? How long do you have to get this thing live? And the size of your mouth, right? Which is budget. How much money do you have? You got to work within that. So legal requirements. Look how sad this lawyer looks. This is you went to them and said, please, can we not have this 120-word footer on our page? She said, no, I'm sorry, because I'm a lawyer. All right, the best thing that you can do is make friends with legal. And we find this all the time. If one person on your team can go and find one reasonable person within legal, take them out to coffee, take them out for a drink, listen to their woes, because you know what? They don't want to get in your way. I mean, maybe some of them do, but don't take those people out for drinks. They want it to be a good product, but they also need to cover our butts, right? They need to consider risk. If you're working in a highly regulated industry, it is more difficult to reach compromise. I understand that, but it is an ongoing conversation that sometimes lawyers just don't understand how people read online. They don't understand user intent. Okay, maybe they'll understand time on page. Maybe they'll understand bounce rates. Maybe they'll understand showing legal copy from another site of a competitor and showing, look, they're doing it and they're writing it in a way that's actually in normal English, okay? Brand requirements, this is something else that you can't change. If they've articulated voice and tone and you have to write within that, then that's it, that's a constraint. System requirements, constraint, can't change those to sort of create longer copy or shorter copy or new boxes or whatever, can't change that. Accessibility requirements, those stay the same. We can't flex with those. Human grammar, we can't change human grammar. We can't change the fact that people want us to write like people and not like robots, okay? Sign in. Sorry, we're having trouble signing you in because we received a bad request. That's not how a human person would speak. 404, page not found. Page you're looking for doesn't exist. With missing the apostrophe, go back to the home page. Or another error occurred. View your accounts. Enroll now. Why is this inconsistent? Why is it enroll for a verb, Fraud Information Center is a noun, privacy, cookies, etc. is a noun? Register with Amazon, 2 registries with great benefits. Why are you telling me that? I just want to get to a registry. Don't even offer me any information. Conversation flows, this is misspelled. Interacting with yourself, this is misspelled. This isn't even a freaking word, right? I had to cut this section by like 30 slides. I get real angry. Be careful. Be intentional. Have people spot check your copy. You can do it. You can take 30 seconds to do it. This stuff that I just showed you, it's lazy. It gets in the way. It's unnecessary. And most importantly, or to us within this room, it compromises our design. Because I don't care how beautiful your design is, and I don't care how fast your page loads. If you've got words that are misspelled, if you've got overwritten copy, if you don't deliver the content that people expect to find when they click through a link or a menu item, you've lost them. So words are your business. They are important to you. And if you don't have those external resources, take responsibility for them, because you want to protect the integrity of the overall experience. So, here's what we've covered. How can you get started? Consider your substance. Take a look at those page tables. Think about what you're trying to say. Help prioritize. Practice good hygiene. I loved this tweet from Mr. Dan Mall. Designers, it's not usually a responsibility, but misspellings indicate you lack attention to detail, and that is your responsibility. So run it through a spell check. Ask somebody to take a look at it. Doesn't take long. Sketch with words. We talked about this too. They're essential for helping users accomplish tasks. By thinking about those words while you're sketching, you can uncover those problems earlier. At the very least, figure out what words you're hoping to use for your headers, key verbs, and nouns on your page, buttons, and link text. Okay? So don't sketch like this. Benefit 1, benefit 2, benefit 3, pricing info here. Sketch like this. Headings, use real prices, use real products, use real words. And look at how that reshapes the experience and the considerations for you as a designer. And you don't need all the words. You can still do squiggly lines. You can still use some lorem ipsum if you want to, but work hard to choose the important ones as you are working along. See? It's all so easy, right? We fixed it. All right, we didn't fix it. But hopefully now you've got some tools that will empower you within the design process to start choosing words and start having conversations with your copywriters, with your content strategists, and collaborating at that level that Dan talked about yesterday to make better decisions to find harmony within your design, your website, and your product designs. So next time you walk into this scenario, and I'm not there, and project manager says, I wish we had a writer. And this guy says, I still don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to check my bag. And this woman is like, don't worry, Todd can do it. Todd, that's you, says, hell yeah, I can. Thank you very much.